Hello, good evening. Thank you for being with us tonight, Thursday night. I know it's the 4th of July, as we're recording live. Tim Vince and myself will be with you for the next hour or thereabouts. And we do want you to take part in the program, live at revelationtv.com. Named the program tonight, Hoisted by Your Own Petard. Hoisted by Your Own Petard. Now, Tim, that's a play on words, but what do you think I'm getting at?
It's Shakespeare again, I think.
Yeah.
Hamlet, when he murdered or stabbed Polonius. But what are you getting at? It basically means that what you have planned for someone else, the very thing that you've planned for them, bounces back or you get blown up by. And that's essentially what it means. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Pass the test. Tick box. Aren't I very condescending?
You are.
Okay, sorry about that. But really, I'm thinking...
It's a bird, condor, isn't it? Yeah. And then it descends.
Well, of course, very good.
Flight of the condor.
It's an eagle.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And then, of course, then there's the snake, the anaconda. I could never call any of my children Anna, because it wouldn't have been fair to them, would it? It's sneaky.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the ins and outs.
Don't worry about it. Anyway, I'm thinking more of Haman. Haman wanted to put all the Jews to death, as you remember from the book of Esther. You can read the whole story. I'm sure most of our viewers are so into the scriptures they know everything about them. But what I'm trying to say is here, maybe Hamas, which is probably a derivative of the word Haman, actually are going to be hoisted by their own petard, in the sense that they've used their own people to hide behind in order to attack, or when they are being attacked, they're using their own people as shields, cannon fodder, in reverse, as it were. And maybe at last, as we're going to see some video tonight, that Hamas is being hung and drawn and quartered by its own people. We've got some interesting footage which we're going to share with you. And in fact, it got shown on the BBC of all places. In fact, was it Melanie Phillips?
Yeah, well, Melanie Phillips said the BBC, writing against Hamas, I can't remember the exact quote, I think we might have it on the screen. She said, I think I've got to go and have a lie down. I mean, because I think it's unprecedented.
Definitely
certainly in this current war, and certainly over the last 20 years, for the BBC to basically have the guts, or at least the honesty, to say, look, this is how Hamas, this is what she wrote. The BBC reports the truth about Gaza. I think I'll have to go and lie down. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when I saw it tonight, and we're going to, in fact, we better show it fairly quickly.
Show the news article?
Yeah, the news article.
So I just saw it on the website and then thought, really? Hamas faces growing public dissent as Gaza war erupts. Open criticism of Hamas.
It says there, by the way, erodes support. Their support for her... Yeah.
What did I say?
But
erupts.
Yeah, erupts. But that's because it's the next line. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Some open criticism of Hamas has been growing in Gaza. This is the BBC.
At last.
Both on the streets and online. Some have publicly criticised Hamas for hiding the hostages in apartments near a busy marketplace or for firing rockets from civilian areas. Residents have told the BBC that swearing and cursing against the Hamas leadership is now common in the markets, and that some drivers of donkey carts have even nicknamed their animals after the Hamas leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, urging the donkeys forward with shouts, Yalla Sinwar. Isn't that amazing? And then there's a terrible video of a man who is a doctor, and he says, I had a good life, but this is on the BBC, but we have a filthy Hamas leadership. They got used to our bloodshed. May God curse them, they are scum. The video, unthinkable before the Gaza war, was filmed outside a hospital inundated with hundreds of Palestinian casualties after an Israeli operation to free hostages from central Gaza last month. I think the dam is bursting. I actually think that all of these cries of condemnation against Israel are all going quiet because suddenly the truth is coming out. And the people who have been bullied all these months and years finally are being liberated.
Yeah. Thank God that somebody had the courage to do this, because they were shouting it from the housetops as well, and in the marketplaces.
Yeah.
But we've got video of this, and I think what we might have to do is play it through twice, because it goes through very quickly, and I think it'll help us to take it all in what is happening. The Palestinian people are revolting against Hamas. And not blaming Israel in that sense, because it's Hamas who brought Israel since October the 7th in particular in and destroyed all their homes and shops and businesses and their lives. It's really sad and tragic, but have a look at this video.
أنه قرار سلم خلاص، معي هبل، هذا اللي بيسويه هبل، قتل شعبه، السنوار قتل شعبه.
وين العدالة؟ هو هذا الحكم اللي بيحكمنا اياه سنوار وهنية، ابن المسؤول الحمساوي بقى عمره 20 سنة وله سيارة وله جب وله عمارة ومتجوز وله كل ما يملك، وابن اولادنا لا يملكوا من الحياة شيء.
إذا حكيت لك إنه حماس دمغت غزة، شو بتقول لي؟
هذا شيء أكيد، شيء أكيد يعني. تمام، هذا صحيح سبب.
وبعدين بالنسبه للمقاومه اللي بتيجي بتخبى بين الناس، ليش تخبى بين الناس؟ يروح في جهنم يتخبى، يعني هذه شهادات من
اللي دمروا البلد واللي يا ابو العبد انت اكبر حنين. يا هنيه ويا عباس، يا هنيه ويا عباس، وين الكهرب وين الغاز، وين الكهرب وين الغاز.
احنا دفعنا ثمن تذكرة حماس، احنا دفعنا التذكرة لها.
بدي اوجه رسالتي إلى حكومة حماس، حسبي الله عليك، والله يلعنك ويلعن أبوك ويلعن اللي جابك، والله يلعنك يا سنوار. حسبي الله عليك، دمرتنا يا
اليهود برجعوا الاولاد خايفين، في الاخر انا عيلت عن حالي، خشيت جوا اليهود نزلوا، ما سالت شو موتت مش مشكله، خشيت جوا طلعت هيك لقيت ابني، الاتصال تبعه بعرفه.
People in Gaza are tired of being used as human shields by Hamas. Why do you keep supporting that?
علوا عنا يا حماس، علوا عنا يا حماس، علوا عنا يا حماس، علوا عنا يا حماس. بالدم بالدولار، يا الدم بالدولار. علوا عنا. أنه قرار سلم خلاص، معي هبل، هذا اللي بيسويه هبل، قتل شعبه، السنوار قتل شعبه.
وين العدالة؟ هو هذا الحكم اللي بيحكمنا اياه سنوار وهنية، ابن المسؤول الحمساوي بقى عمره 20 سنة وله سيارة وله جب وله عمارة ومتجوز وله كل ما يملك، وابن اولادنا لا يملكوا من الحياة شيء.
إذا حكيت لك إنه حماس دمغت غزة، شو بتقول لي؟
هذا شيء أكيد، شيء أكيد يعني. تمام، هذا صحيح سبب.
وبعدين بالنسبه للمقاومه اللي بتيجي بتخبى بين الناس، ليش تخبى بين الناس؟ يروح في جهنم يتخبى، يعني هذه شهادات من
اللي دمروا البلد واللي يا ابو العبد انت اكبر حنين. يا هنيه ويا عباس، يا هنيه ويا عباس، وين الكهرب وين الغاز، وين الكهرب وين الغاز.
احنا دفعنا ثمن تذكرة حماس، احنا دفعنا
Just stop there, because I want you to see the next clip, which we've shown this twice so that it can sink in. But this is the radio interviewer, and he's got, you know, a nice sort of comfortable face until he hears what his guest is saying.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at this.
بدي اوجه رسالتي إلى حكومة حماس، حسبي الله عليك، والله يلعنك ويلعن أبوك ويلعن اللي جابك، والله يلعنك يا سنوار. حسبي الله عليك، دمرتنا يا
اليهود برجعوا الاولاد خايفين في الاخر انا عيلت عن حالي خشيت جوا اليهود نزلوا ما سالتش لو موتت مش مشكله خشيت جوا طلعت هيك لقيت ابني تتشاط طبعا بعرفوا من
People in Gaza are tired of being used as human shields by Hamas. Why do you keep supporting that?
Yeah. Palestinian people are just so fed up now, and I really thank God that it's coming to light so that young people in this country and across the world who seem to be so tied up and hung up on the fact that Israel's the one to blame, and you know, from the river to the sea, Israel will be free. Sorry, I missed.
Yeah, Howard, you're dyslexic.
I know, I'm dyslexic. Yeah, the river to the sea.
Do you know what my first impression when I saw that is so moving to see a people who have been oppressed for decades being liberated.
Yeah.
And that's the point about the whole story. And you know,
it took one person probably to start that and say, no, we've had enough. It's probably a woman as well, because they don't put up with anything. My wife tells me off when she's right to do so. But the thing is that, you know, sorry, Tim, it just is so, the fact that it was on the BBC as well, some of that, it is really quite remarkable. I wonder if they realised what they were releasing.
It's possible that some, I haven't seen who gave report, but it may be in a rogue reporter and it slipped through the net. But it may also be that they can't hide it anymore. With all of their distorted reports against Israel and its motives and the outcomes. Now the outcome is liberation. And it reminds me of on one of the great eve of battle speeches of modern times was when the Gulf War started, if you remember, after America was attacked on 9/11, if you remember.
I do. Yeah.
2001. You know, Bush said, look, I hear you, and soon everyone's going to hear all of us. They didn't execute it very well, but on the eve of that war, that Gulf War, Colonel Tim Collins, British Army officer, one of the great lines was, we are not coming as conquerors, we're coming as liberators. And I believe that. I think we have a duty to liberate people from the bullies, wherever we see that happening.
Yeah.
It's a duty.
You know, you said, do I remember 9/11? I mean, I know you probably heard this story before. I was working at a place called Visual Impact. That's a place where I buy cameras and things like that for the studios and things. And I was going through into their hire department, and they had on the news that was just happened, one aeroplane had gone into the tower, one of the twin towers. And they said, look at this, Howard, look at this. And I don't know why I said it. They said, oh, it looks like it's an accident. I said, no, it's no accident. And I said, this is only the beginning. Why did I say that? And then within seconds after I'd said that, the second plane went in. And so, but I suppose, like you and I, we knew one another before the Revelation TV existed. And I was already doing undercover for CST in interviewing Sheikh Mohammed Bakri and stuff like, and people like that.
Omar Bakri Mohammed.
Yeah. And so I knew, in a way, what was coming. You could see the build-up to that, from the hatred that they have for the West. And that was the beginning.
And it still isn't over. It's still being played out in Paris, in Holland, you know, in Germany. Not so much in Britain, because we're relatively passive, and the police will arrest the man in the white van who protests about, you know, the streets being taken over by hate preachers. But generally, you know, around the Western world, things are bubbling up, and you could see it coming long before 9/11.
Yeah. So live at revelationtv.com. Please do give us your comments and points. Any similes that you want to bring in with regards to Haman and Hamas and the destruction of the people, and how Mordecai had actually asked Esther to come and step in for such a time as this. Otherwise, God would raise somebody else up. So I just read that again just now. So it was quite. He was quite brave enough to speak to his niece in such a a stern way. And I think it's for all of us is to stand firm and stand up for truth with regards to Israel and its existence, and it's God's will and purpose for it to exist. Whether they're right or wrong with their politics or anything else is another matter. And there's obviously a lot of irreligious Jews, but the thing is, God has a plan for Israel, and it's not. It's for them to be there in the land that God gave them, and He's going to call even many more back.
And also, more generally, with Mordecai, you know, don't honour and kowtow to tyrants. He wouldn't. He stayed seated.
Yeah.
And Haman just couldn't stand that. I remember around the same time that we're talking about, in the early 2000s, I met Arafat, and I was in the kind of delegation where everyone was kissing his beard, and I refused to do it. And he did. You could see the anger in his face.
Wow.
And you know, at the end of the day, you stand or fall on your integrity and your principles. And it doesn't matter whether you then get shut out of, you know, the corridors of power. You just have to stand on truth.
Truth, and it comes involuntarily out of you. You suddenly say something and you go, my goodness, that's gonna, I'm not gonna be Mr. Popular anymore. And
I was quite pleased with myself when this is absolutely true. I came back to the UK and my dad died a few days later. And just before I told him about this encounter with Arafat, and I thought he would say, well done. And the last words I had from my dad were these, Howard: why didn't you put a poison dart in him?
Good old Dad. Okay, we have another piece that we're going to show just a couple of minutes of, Jonathan Cahn. It's just a couple of minutes that we can show legally, and I'm sure you'll gain something from this as well.
A 2,500-year-old mystery. There was in the land of Persia a man named Haman, who rose to power under the Persian king Ahasuerus. Haman raged against the Jewish people. He threatened and planned their destruction. But the hand of God turned everything around. The Jewish people would be saved and destruction would come instead to Haman. The holiday of Purim celebrates the salvation of the Jewish people from Haman. What is Persia? It all happened in Persia. In the 1930s, Persia changed its name to Iran. Haman was a Persian or Iranian official who rose to power, raged against the Jews. Raisi was a Persian Iranian official who rose to power and raged against the Jews and threatening the destruction of Israel. On top of being the first president of Iran to actually launch a strike against Israel. You know what God said? He said, "He who touches Israel touches the apple of my eye." It is a dangerous thing to do what Raisi did. So what was Haman's fate? Haman had threatened to destroy the Jewish people. His instrument of destruction was the gallows. So he was hung, destroyed on his own gallows. Raisi was also linked to the gallows, but the weapon he used to bring destruction to Israel, again, was airborne, sent through the sky to crash into the soil of Israel. So it was airborne. His death would come airborne through the sky, crashing into Iranian soil, that his life would be brought to an end. The overcoming of Haman brought rejoicing to Israel. When the news of Raisi's end was known, though some were sad, there was rejoicing throughout Iran. One Iranian said it was the first crash in history where people were worried that there might be survivors.
Thank you, Jonathan Cahn. So Haman was hung on his own gallows.
Yeah.
And that's why I used that opening line, hoisted by your own petard.
Yeah. And it certainly wasn't a foregone conclusion. He was the prime minister. He had so much power and access, so much so that he could get Xerxes to issue the decree to basically kill all the Jews. He was in a powerful position.
Yeah.
And it turned like that, and he was gone.
It's interesting how the king also really turned and saw really what Haman was all about.
Yeah.
And I think it's
the integrity of Mordecai.
Yeah, but also now what's happening with the Palestinians is they're actually they're now seeing Hamas for what they truly are.
And the other thing that occurred to me in that clip, they're saying they get all these flashy cars. It reminded me of when
multi-million dollars stacked in their banks. Okay.
Remember, you've been in Israel over many, many decades, and I remember the time after the Oslo Accords, suddenly everyone, all the Palestinian leaders were driving around in big flashy Mercs and limousines, and Clinton thought, well, we can just bribe them. They'll sell out their people and we'll stitch up some deal with them. But the people see it. They see that their leaders are corrupt. And there was terrible corruption among the Palestinian leadership.
And even with that, well, including Arafat.
Totally.
Didn't he have a whole lot of money stashed in France?
His wife had nearly €1 billion and based in Paris, and that had been siphoned out of the IMF, the World Bank, the EU, the UN, the US.
Which is us, taken from us. Our tax money.
Plonkers.
Okay, so where do we go next, Tim?
Yeah. We could read some emails. I've got some more from that report, but we have another clip, do we or not? About have we got more about the Gazan speaking out? No, we've dealt with that. Pulse from Israel.
Yeah.
He's talking about something similar, and he's picked up on the son of Hamas. And what he's saying about what's going on in France.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? That we didn't look purposely for these, they just came up today.
I think the big picture, Howard, is we are heading for a major confrontation with, these Islamist forces. They have been taking over France. They're having large families. The Western world is weak. We're having small families. And then bit by bit, am I able to say what you got this text about Turkey playing England?
Oh yeah, it's quite funny. It's in my football group back in Spain. Shall I read it?
Yeah, it's very profound.
Yeah, we have a chit chat. It's not on when they're forming or not forming an actual game. We have the chit chat in Spain. It says England and Turkey are the only two Muslim countries left at the Euros 2024. Yeah. I mean, that is, and of course, one of the guys put a big smiley face, and there is a he's an old player like me, who's a Muslim, said, are all the Christian white boys in Spain now? Mm-hmm. And I said, since Brexit, we Christians are not welcome to Spain anymore. In fact, we're also not welcome in our own country anymore.
Yeah, which plays it the other way around.
I haven't had a response yet.
No, it's true. Yeah, we don't believe in our country, so we're not having large families. Yeah. I mean, I came from a family of 8. That's unheard of today. But I know Christians, families in Holland that are large. There's something that they believe, there's a population, a demographic war going on, and we have to hold on to what we have. I find it very interesting, demographics, but there's a demographic explosion before you talk about immigration. So, France.
I did hold back from putting what I really wanted to put down on that group, but which was, we've all lost our heads.
Yeah, which is another way of saying it.
Yeah. Anyway, what can we go to next?
Yeah, so in France, your friend is Avi.
Yes.
Avi Avalon. Yeah. So he's just on one of his sort of pieces to camera, picking up on a post from the son of Hamas in Paris, which is quite interesting.
Let's have a watch of this.
Do you know why you should be extremely concerned about what is going on in France? And again, I did this video yesterday. Well, this is what Marcel Biosef, the Green Prince, the son of Hamas, posted. And I quote, "The French Resolution. It has been 17 years, or maybe you meant revolution. It has been 17 years since my last visit to Paris. I can barely recognize the place. 15% of French population today are Muslims. It would take them 5 generations to integrate. By then there won't be France. Extreme measures must be taken immediately. That includes mass deportation of illegal migrants, invaders, immediate deportation of the pro-Palestine Muslims who don't submit to the French Constitution as a higher authority than Allah should lose their citizenship. Islam is not a religion. It is a totalitarian system, and mosques are hate houses that must be closely monitored. Any political activity at any mosque should be considered a serious violation against the law. But the current French government is partnering with Qatar for the Olympics security. The games will most likely end up in a disaster. Do you know what country was once more Western that then turned into an Islamic theocracy? Iran. Check out what Iran used to look like before the Islamic Revolution in 1979. Now listen to this Iranian exilee talk about what his concerns about what he sees happening in the West.
Political refugee from Iran. I've been to prison, I've been under Islamic law, and I know how it starts and I know how it ends. And it always starts with the, for some reason, unity of left and Islamists, and it scares me. So I came here to be free. I chose Canada as my second home to be live in a free country, and I'm beginning to get really scared because the way things are going, it looks like they're going to basically appease Islamists just to not raise any ruckus or something. They're just going to appease them step by step, and they're not going to stop. They see it as a sign of weakness, so they're going to take more and more, and I'm against that. I believe Canada should be free, and freedom of speech is something that nobody can take.
The student in that video spoke about how it was the unity of the left and the Islamists that brought about the revolution in Iran in 1979. That then led to the Islamists taking power. So what happened to the Marxist leftists after the Islamists took power in Iran? Well, Chala Shafiq was a 25-year-old Marxist activist during the 1979 Iranian Revolution, now in exile in France. She was interviewed in this article titled, "How Iran's Theocrats Allied with and Then Crushed the Left." So, let's read what she says. She explains how after the revolution succeeded, the Islamist regime under Khomeini started to censor and ban a lot of newspapers and other writings of the Marxist leftist groups, who were protesting in the streets together with Islamist supporters of Khomeini. But when the Islamists took power in Iran, overthrowing the Western Shah, everyone who supported Khomeini considered all the leftist groups, the progressive left, as their number one enemy and wanted to get rid of them too. But the Marxist leftists were totally surprised, because they still considered their number one enemy not to be Khomeini and the Islamists, but the West. And the left was totally crushed by the Islamist regime of Khomeini that they helped put into power. Sound familiar with what we see taking place today in France, Germany, Sweden, Britain, and other Western European countries, and potentially other freedom-loving countries? In the Iranian Revolution, the Marxist leftists, the progressives, were useful idiots of the Islamists. In their Marxist zeal to bring about the destruction of the Western influence on Iran, they ushered in an Islamic theocracy that then crushed the freedom and the Marxist progressive left in Iran, and whatever freedom they had. That is why freedom-loving people have to be very afraid of what we are witnessing today with the active partnership between the progressive left and the Islamists in America, France, Germany, Canada, and the whole freedom-loving world. In the meantime, signing off for another episode, thank you everyone for watching. Shalom from Jerusalem, our indivisible capital.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land.
So there is this bigger picture that's going on, and you can see that, okay, we talk about Hamas and them being hoisted on their own, by their own or on their own petard, but also the left in encouraging Islam and Islamists to destroy their great hatred, which is Christians, in Western countries. They've been doing it consistently, not just in Britain, across Europe and in America. They just somehow hate their heritage, and they hate the Judeo-Christian heritage. Well, exactly as Avi was saying, they will be destroyed. They will be destroyed by this very time bomb that they've created. It will blow up in their face. And that, I think, if you look up the definition of hoist on your own petard, it is basically a bomb that you're trying to roll towards someone else. It rolls back towards you and it blows up in your face.
Okay. Almost like a grenade that gets thrown back.
Yeah.
But we were talking when we were watching one of those videos about the history, the Islamic, if you like,
I know.
Attacks, if you like, over the history of the last 2,000 years.
And this is the key point that the Western liberals don't want their people to pick up on, and that is that Muslims and Islam are compelled by Allah to take the world. It's world domination. And when they believe they're on a roll, as they did in the early centuries of Islam, the Muslim hordes came across North Africa. They broke into southern Spain. You're talking about Spain earlier. They came all the way up to the Battle of Tours in 732, and Charles Martin stopped them. Now, up until that point, when they were on the roll, everything was the fulfillment of the prophetic dream of Islam to take the world. And it seemed as though Allah was giving them everything. And then they were defeated and they went into a corporate depression for hundreds of years until the Ottoman Empire built momentum again. And then they believed they were going to take the world. And they were only stopped in 1583 at the Battle of Vienna. And then again, they went into a corporate depression. You didn't hear much about, Islamic domination until the last century and the advent of oil. And then the oil power grew and grew. And we know at the Yom Kippur War and the Arab oil crisis, suddenly they thought, why wouldn't they? Allah has given us this power to take the world again. And then by different streams, and the Islamic stream in the revolutionary stream in Iran was one of them. The Sunni, that was the Shia revolution, but the Sunni revival in Saudi Arabia with the Wahhabis, both of those streams have grown in momentum. And if you're a radical, blood-curdling, fire-breathing, believing Muslim, you're going to say, Allah has given us, this is it. This is the chance that we have now to take the world. They've done the Hudna? They've done this migration across to the Western world. They're growing in power and strength, and it's not a matter of politics. It's a matter of their divinely given opportunity to take the world for Islam. Yeah. That's their theology.
What about 12th century, was it? 13th century with Saladin?
Yeah. So the Crusades and those battles over Jerusalem was a key point, because there was an ebb and flow, but Islam was building up its power and strength again, and Saladin defeated the Crusaders.
When was the
he
Dome
was a
of the Rock
greater
built?
leader.
When was the Dome of the Rock erected?
Oh, that was in the 500s. The Dome of the Rock was really early. It was right in the early days of Islam.
But that wasn't until
600,
7th century,
600.
was it?
Again?
Wasn't it 700 AD or there?
No, it's earlier. It was earlier than the Battle of Tours, and that was part of this incredible growth of Islam. By the way, it wasn't by conversion. It wasn't by evangelism and missionary endeavor across the Roman world.
By the sword.
It was persecution and convert or die by their own.
But were the Crusaders any better?
Were the Crusaders any better? No, they were horrific in the way they treated, especially the Jews across Europe on their way to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Death to the Christ killers.
Yeah, because they were like, when you see, what was the film that was out not so long ago? Well, a good few years ago, probably 10 or 15 years ago. It was really very
The Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah, the Kingdom of Heaven. Amazing, wasn't it?
It starts
but
with,
you saw
with
the
bloodthirsty
Crusaders, though, but you saw one who had a real heart for truth and establishing it. It was in the film, obviously, it was the cobbler, wasn't it?
That's right.
Is that what
That's
you call them?
Yeah, blacksmith.
Blacksmith.
I think he was.
Yeah.
No, it's a great film because it gave an insight into that era. But these knights in shining armour are okay in sort of muddy England, but over in the heat of Israel, they were taken out. Yeah, they were taken out by Saladin.
Yeah.
His.
And very interesting film.
Yeah,
Kingdom of
all
Heaven.
I would say is it's happening all around us. We see little symptoms of this wave,
Rise.
but is Europe strong enough to fight back? I'm not sure. Looking at it,
If anything, they'd have to do it collectively.
Yeah.
Otherwise, individually, we just get picked off.
And do we have a cause? Is sort of secular humanism enough of a cause? Is our LGBT rights, as it were, are they the people who are going to hold and stand against Islam? They're more likely to ally with them.
Well, they are. That's exactly the point I was just going to make, Tim, is that they're, and it's an irony, it's an uneven matrimony, you know, in that sense, because Islam is totally against everything to do with LGBT rights. Yeah. And yet they seem to align themselves quite comfortably with
Hamas.
Hamas.
It's the weirdest thing.
Isn't it?
So
that's why maybe the hoisting of the Petard, as you said, is going to come
against the left.
And
to see that man shouting from the rooftop, I found that so moving.
Yeah.
When you think that in 2006, Hamas were throwing people off rooftops.
Yep.
You've got to be a brave guy. Or, when people in the marketplace are speaking out, when people on TV studios are speaking out with their face, you think, no, the tide is changing. And maybe Hamas is coming to the end.
I'd like to see, and I'm sure there is proof somewhere, of when you see the starving babies in Gaza, that they're actually going to Israeli hospitals to get treatment. Yeah. I know they said they were going and leaving Gaza and going into Israel, into Egypt.
That may come out, you see.
But I think
that may come out.
It would not surprise me that Israel would step in and actually save the lives of those Palestinians.
Just another thing, Howard, you were there in Timișoara, during the time of revolution in Romania. It happens quite quickly. When the dam bursts, when, as it were, the key planks of a regime are gone, then it can happen in Iran. It happened across the whole of the Warsaw Pact countries. Let's pray that it happens, with these other tyrannies in the Middle East.
Yeah, it was almost overnight. They got to a crescendo where the people they just weren't going to take any more from Ceausescu and his regime, which was very much brutal regime and very much in line with what Russia was all about at that particular time. Yeah.
Shall I read
emails?
some
emails?
This is the first one from Paul and Ruth. Good evening, Tim and Howard, bless you. We read this report from the BBC today. We shouted hallelujah to our Almighty God. We have been praying prayers of intercession for the truth to be brought out and revealed on the rooftops. That's exactly what happened. Thanks be to God, our strength and refuge. God bless Israel in Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you, N. Wright. Thank you for showing this great development. All our prayers are being answered. Dave says, do you think all on that video is genuine and not some clever ploy to get Israel to stop bombing? Can you trust that they are all genuine? Sorry to be sceptical.
No.
It seems very strange to me that they have suddenly, after all these years, started to turn against their oppressors. I agree. The thought crossed my mind.
It did cross all our minds, but the thing is that it seemed quite overwhelming that there were so many people. Yeah. I mean, you had hundreds of them walking down the streets in Gaza, all shouting about it. But the thing is that how long can you oppress a people? And they've been oppressed by Hamas.
That's it.
And they've seen the evidence of all the jets and all the money. Look at the times that Israel, when they got into the tunnels, would find packets of dollars. I mean, millions of dollars worth of money.
Another thing they found, which I read today, is Chinese engineers from the People's Liberation Army involved in the building of tunnels.
Right.
That's a story that can come out. Yeah. And I believe it came from
God
Israeli
will expose all
exactly.
lies underneath,
Because they do want to, China wants to destroy America as a world power. That's the place to
Yeah.
start.
Well, they're trying to undermine everything with regards to what we're doing in the West, including targeting the NHS, you know, because they know that's a political football, that anybody who with any sensitivity wants to protect the NHS, and if they can attack that and undermine that and make it fail more, then they'll be succeeding in coming against our democracies.
So it's very dangerous times, I think. If you've got Iran, Russia, China, all working together to disrupt sort of Western hegemony.
What would you call it? A chord of evil? What's a good a way of expressing this alliance to come?
Well, it
must be a good terminology. Maybe the viewers have got one for it.
George Bush Jr. used the term axis of evil.
That's it.
We've now got another axis that's emerged, and it's far more dangerous than a few Islamic countries linking together. Eddie writes, anyone studying the Quran and the Hadith and not seeing a link between the Islamic scriptures and Islamic violence is either lying or is thick.
Well done, Eddie.
Eddie writes...
I'll tell you what would be good, though, as well, when you've just read that one, is just explain the difference between a Sunni and a Shiite.
Well, there were two, it goes back to the early days of Islam. I'm not an expert, but it depends on those that... I don't know whether you could describe it as like the difference between the Catholic Church and the who believe they've got it from almost an inheritance back to Peter. And the Sunnis believe that they've got this kind of heritage that goes right back to Muhammad, whereas the Shiites believe, like the Charismatics do, that they can hear directly from God. Right. And
oh dear.
and so you've got these Ayatollahs who pop up, whose name means Oracle of God, and they say, look, I'm actually the spokesperson of God now, and listen to me and follow me.
Yeah. Can you think of almost a rhyme or something that helps you to understand Sunni and Shiite and the difference? There isn't one.
How do I know?
Well,
I'm not a musician or a drummer. How can I invent a rhyme?
Yeah.
But
I thought I heard something, but it was more to do with the weather.
Okay. It's sunny.
And
that's
the
true.
other ones,
that would help you to remember.
The weather is...
The Sunnis, or you call them the Sunnis, but the Sunnis are they were pretty docile compared to this blood-curdling Iranian revolution, but alongside that revolution, there's a revival of Islamism and radical Islam and everyone growing beards. Egypt had a similar situation to Iran. We heard Noni Darwish, where they were all westernized. They weren't covering up.
You saw that in the video, didn't you? I mean, they were just dressed like very much Westerners, with nice tops, nice hairdos, and they did have decent trousers, and they wouldn't be allowed to wear trousers, would they?
So the radicals were a small minority, and Egypt was pretty westernized, and it's Sunni. And then why? There's something spiritual happening. Why should this great evil rise up in both sides of Islam, who really are, each other's throats most of their history, and now suddenly they're all rising up again together against America and Israel.
So America, the greater Satan.
In Israel, the little Satan, an implant of the West. Shall I read a bit more?
Yeah.
Les says, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle, my loving kindness and my fortress, my high tower and my deliverer, my shield, and the one in whom I take refuge, who subdues my people under me." That's Psalm 144. It's a little bit long, Ian. I'll try and read a little bit. What does the Arabic word Hamas mean? Hamas is an acronym of the Arabic phrase, blah, 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 blah. How can I do it? But it means Islamic resistance movement. I don't read Arabic. Okay. This acronym, HMS, was glossed in the 1988 Hamas Covenant by the Arabic word Hamas, which itself means zeal, strength, or bravery. Furthermore, Palestine means occupied land. Indeed, it is occupied Jewish land, a clear read of Numbers 34. I've read nearly half of your email.
That's very good.
Yeah, very good.
Numbers 34. Whilst you're reading the rest, let me look at that. Numbers chapter 34.
Yeah, and so Laura says, So sad to see the footage of Gazans suffering, but surely they are beginning to realise that Israel will be doing them a favour by destroying Hamas.
Yes.
Sad because there is surely innocent Gazans who don't support the regime at all. I just wonder how Israel will take down this group. Reports tell us they have killed many of them, but the real head honchos are living it up in luxury in other countries. Still, I believe that Israel will have the victory, as we know from Bible history, that no nation that comes against Israel succeeds.
I'm just reading 34 Numbers as well. It says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Command the sons of Israel, and say to them, When you enter the land of Canaan, this is the land that shall fall to you as an inheritance, even the land of Canaan according to its borders. Your southern border sector shall extend from the river to the sea? Okay. From the wilderness of Zin, alongside the side of Edom, and along the southern border, your southern border, and shall extend from the end of the Salt Sea to the eastward. So that's to as far as the Dead Sea. The wilderness of Zin is that a little bit just under Jericho, further south than Jericho. And so this is, and from Edom,
which is Jordan now.
Okay, so that's the width. So from the Mediterranean to where Jordan is, and it doesn't see how much from the north, though, it's saying, but certain, Canaan.
We've got a map.
Yeah,
if we can find it, that
yeah.
might make it easier for people to see it.
Yeah, and it says, so your border shall turn direction from the south to the ascent of Akrabin and continue to Zin, and its termination shall be in the south of the Kadesh Barnea, and it shall reach Hazaradah, and continue to Amzon. Is that where he gets his name? Okay, he just goes on. It's a lot more.
Certainly, there's no Palestinian heritage going back to biblical times.
No.
There's a tenuous link to the Philistines.
Oh yeah, and of course the western border shall be to the Great Sea. So that's to the Mediterranean.
That's it.
So from the river to the sea belongs to Z on.
Yeah, that's very good, Howard. Yeshua Evangelist writes, truly in reality, you can't separate Palestine, occupied Jewish land, from Hamas, for over 80% voted for them. They are two peas from the same pod. Also, I believe that an earthquake shall happen to do away with the second most holy place in Islam, to make way for Solomon's temple. And Haggai 2 verses 6 to 7 hints at this. It's a bit of a pseudonym, Yeshua Evangelist, but we don't mind reading pseudonyms, do we? But yeah, so in Haggai 2 verses 6 and 7, if you wanted to have a look at that.
Haggai 2
verses 6 and 7.
I've got it.
Okay, we've got a map, Howard. Just why don't we have a look at it?
Haggai 2, 6 and 7.
That just gives an idea
I've got
on
it
what you were
marked
just
as
reading.
well, funnily enough.
Go on, do you want to read it?
For thus the Lord of hosts says, once a little more once in a while, I am going to shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land. And I will shake the nations, and they will come out with the wealth of the nations, and I will fill the house with glory, says the Lord of hosts. The silver is mine, the gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. And the latter glory of this house will be greater than the former, says the Lord of hosts. And in this place I will give peace, declares the Lord of hosts. And so it goes on. It's a prophecy, really.
Yeah. Peter just says, I wanted to say, when truth comes out, it's like fresh oil flowing. Glenda says the government of Spain have joined in the debate on Israel and agreeing with the ICC. Britain may do the same if the left are in government. I know that Father God is in control, but we still have to pray. God bless you on Revelation TV. That is where it seems to be heading. You know, all nations will be standing against Israel. You think, how can that possibly happen?
You can see how it can possibly happen. It's amazing.
I had a conversation, Jean says, I had a conversation today about the same things you are discussing tonight. I think the doors being opened for immigrants to enter countries may be too late now to recover.
Yep.
When you see as it has been since October the 7th and all the Palestine protests, it's quite unreal that our Christian faith is being trampled on. Governments don't want to hear about it either. What we see in Israel, make no mistake, it will make its way here. Go Revelation, you are marching for the Lord Jesus, and we as Bible-believing Christians who love our Lord Jesus are all marching with you. Gene,
very good.
Yeah,
I say very good. I don't. It sounds like we're wallowing in our own glory in that sense. I don't mean that at all. It's really sad. The whole situation is so sad, and it can make one angry when you see what's happening.
It's good that we're not the only ones.
Yeah, but the people of Palestine are just so many sweet souls there. You know, innocent people.
That's it.
It's tragic.
That's the next text. Says exactly that.
I'm relieved to see the footage I'm seeing today.
Yeah.
Because I'm pleased that they now know who the real enemy is. It's the Hamas, you know.
Exactly.
God bless them.
Yeah. Stephen
Not Hamas,
says,
by the way. God bless the Palestinians.
Yeah, exactly. I agree, Howard and Tim. Stephen says that the Palestinians are used as cannon fodder for Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, etc. These same Palestinians spat on the hostages and the dead Jews on October the 7th.
Yeah.
Before Hamas took power in Gaza, the Palestinian Arabs were the terrorists in the form of the PLO, Black September, jihadis, etc. Yasser Arafat cried peace in America and jihad in Gaza. Yes, the Gazans are hurting. They may reveal the truth about Hamas now, but really, can we believe that they want peace with Israel? Remember, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Islam hates Israel. I wish it was different. God bless. Stephen.
Yeah. I'm going to say what I've said many times. Prophecy in Isaiah 19, that one day God is going to bring Jew, Arab, Gentile, all together to worship him and his holy mountain on Zion. Believe it or not, but they'll be in unity. That day is yet to come, and that's what we look forward to. Thank God, because in that sense, we're all God's children. In fact, let me read it. It's such a beautiful prophecy. Isaiah. Bear with me. I'm at 55 at the moment, 33. 21, 19. I'll read from verse 16 and I'll jump around a bit, but it says, in that day the Egyptians will become like women and they will tremble and be in dread, etc., etc. But then it's a turnaround as we move down. It says in verse 19, in that day there will be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar to the Lord near its border. Oh, that's Gaza. It will become a sign and a witness to the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt, for they will cry to the Lord because of the oppressors, Hamas maybe, and he will send them a saviour and a champion, and he will deliver them. Thus the Lord will make himself known to Egypt, and the Egyptians will know the Lord in that day, still to come. They will even worship with sacrifice and offering, and will make a vow to the Lord and perform it. And the Lord will strike Egypt, striking but with healing. That's interesting, isn't it? So they will return to the Lord, and he will respond to them and will heal them. In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrians will come into Egypt, and the Egyptians into Assyria, and the Egyptians will worship with the Assyrians. And in that day Israel will be a third party with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth. So Israel is going to be a blessing, as it was always predicted to be from Genesis 12. Whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, blessed is Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance.
Amazing. And one part of that was fulfilled, you could say, at Camp David. I mean, Israel and Egypt came to an agreement with Jimmy Carter in America, 1978. And Israel was blessed. Sorry, Egypt was blessed along with Israel.
It was, wasn't it?
But the missing element is Syria. And Jordan is basically an annex of Syria at the moment. That, you know, Syria have control of Lebanon. Did I say Lebanon or Jordan? Syria have control of Lebanon, and This war that's going on now in the north could break the back of that other axis of evil, which is Iran, Syria,
through
Lebanon, and Hezbollah. So, shall I read a bit more?
Yes, please.
We're just coming to the end, but Peter, you say, I love your show. Our God, Jesus Christ, stated that he would not return to planet Earth until there was a third building of a Jewish temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem in Israel in the very last days, which would later become the abomination of desolation, Matthew 24:15. So my question, Tim and Howard, is how is there going to be a third building, a building of a third temple, when Islam, in response to this world, would fight a Middle Eastern war, and that Islam, in response, would fight a world war?
Good question.
Which we're out of time to answer.
I don't know.
Except that the enemy of God, he doesn't want that Isaiah 19 fulfillment, and he doesn't want any fulfillment from God's
When
word.
you can work out the timetable to actually rebuild a temple from scratch is actually multi-years, many years. So it has to be a miracle.
Yeah.
Maybe the temple, the third temple, will, just like Jesus said, in a moment that temple would be destroyed. And in a moment, the temple could be raised. And you think, well, with men, all things are not possible, but with God, all things are possible.
It's the very last minute, but just to say, in a moment, everything can change. And I might even be able to say at this point in time that the results for the election are coming up, and the election in America, everything can change out very quickly.
Right, but the writing's on the wall. I don't think we've got time to show that, but the writing is on the wall. Many, many tekel and parsin, which means you've been judged and found wanting. And I think this applies to the Western world and also to the Eastern and the West. Okay, stay tuned to Revelation TV, and let's see what you voted for.